Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Sunday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing great out there tonight and had yourselves a wonderful day. And I hope everyone has had a great weekend out there as it comes to an end. And we're about to head off into a very active weather week. Not only is there the potential for a tropical system in the Gulf of Mexico, there is a risk of a hurricane, and there's a risk of this hurricane being a major hurricane, Category 3 or higher. So we're here to feed you guys all the latest information. I'm not even going to lie. The model run guidance has been quite concerning today, especially into this afternoon to this evening. But we're going to give you all the latest information. And we do have reason to believe that some of these concerning, more aggressive model runs could actually happen. So we're going to dive deep into all of it. We'll talk about current conditions in the Caribbean, as this is now an Invest. It's called Invest 97L. The next name is Helene, but it is not Tropical Storm Helene. It is not Hurricane Helene yet, but it most likely will be over the next 24 to 72 hours. I mean, it could be one by the time we wake up tomorrow morning. So we'll go over the latest info from the National Hurricane Center, all model guidance, the GFS, the Euro AI model, the Icon model, the ensemble model guidance. Will speak on the environment that does support a hurricane. That'll be a portion of the video. We'll kind of geek out with you guys a little bit, and then we'll talk about steering currents and the main driver of why this could potentially go where it goes. Okay, so like I said, that'll be a portion of the video, steering currents, the environment background, that we'll just nerd out with you guys for a little bit. And that'll be a way for you folks as the audience, if you're interested, to really understand what drives these tropical systems and what steers these tropical systems. So we'll speak a little bit about impacts, guys, but this system has not even formed yet. So we can't really dive deep into the impacts, especially winds. What I do know is there's going to be a lot of rain for the south and southeast. But how much, we'll speak on a little bit, but just know this info is going to change a lot. I know there's a lot of questions like, what could we see in Pensacola, Tampa? What can we see here? What we can see there? But we just don't know that kind of info yet. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. So let's get rocking and rolling tonight. So let's make sure this is going to work for us, and it is. So as far as what's happening right now in the Caribbean, we're getting explosive convection. Anytime I use the word convection in this video, I'm meaning shower and storm activity. And we're getting a lot of that in the western and central Caribbean. You see this area right here. I mean, you see all these colors like the whites and the pinks right here. This indicates colder cloud tops, which means that we're getting tall and deep convection. These clouds and these updrafts are soaring up way up in the atmosphere. The higher up you get in the atmosphere, the colder it gets. So this tells us that we're just getting some very healthy storm activity. And of course, this is happening over sea surface temperatures, the waters of the Caribbean that are well into the 80s, mid to upper 80s in some spots, and even warmer in kind of the northwestern portion of the Caribbean, which is ultimately where this system is going to work here over the next 24 to 48 hours. So this is really being generated by something we call a CAG, C-A-G, Central American gyre. I know I've been saying gyrum. I've been putting an M in it. Sometimes I can't speak correctly, guys, and I just like to slur my words. It must be a southern thing. I am from South Carolina, so if I do that occasionally, don't make fun of me too much. It's just the way that I speak sometimes. People who've been tuning in for a while know that I definitely have my hiccups with words at times. But Central American gyre is what it's called. It's basically this big broad area of low pressure that quite literally hangs out over Central America, kind of spins cyclonically in the low to mid levels of the atmosphere. Okay, and then occasionally some energy can hang out and for a little bit too long over the Eastern Pacific on the Pacific side, and sometimes for a little bit too long over the Bay of Campeche, the Atlantic side, or either the Caribbean. And this is exactly what's generating this system right this moment. And here it is. The actual center of this system, if there is one, is probably over this area right here, right under that deep convection in the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere. So this is what's going on with this system right this moment. There's a lot of air being dispersed outward in this area over here that I'm drawing these arrows, a lot of divergence aloft. This is pushing air away from the storm, allowing for a lot of air to rise throughout the western and central Caribbean. Therefore, you're getting the opportunity, because rising air does allow for the sustaining and the firing at will of convection. You're just getting a lot of storm activity in the Caribbean, which I know I've said about multiple times over the last couple minutes. So what I'm trying to tell you is we have a tropical area of energy that's well on its way to becoming a tropical system over the next day or two. So that's the latest from the National Hurricane Center. Right now, we have a 80% chance of tropical development in this red area, which means when I say development, the National Hurricane Center means in this case, there's an 80% chance of a tropical depression or named storm forming in the next 7 days. But this is most likely going to happen in the next 24 to 72 hours, in my opinion. So it's going to happen in that red area. Like I said, this is Invest 97L. It's just an investigation. It's not a tropical depression or a named storm yet. The next name is Helene. If I haven't said that already, it's the H name, Helene. The next name after that is Isaac. But this has a solid chance, unless something is really sneaky out there in the Atlantic and takes a name real quick, to become Helene. So you're going to start to hear that a lot. Hurricane Helene, Tropical Storm Helene. That is going to be a name you hear a lot over the next several days. So the latest from the GFS, and folks, I want to tell you this right out the dot. Some of these model runs, especially the GFS, are quite concerning. But like I mentioned earlier in the video, we have reason to believe that some of these model runs that are the most aggressive scenarios could actually happen. So we're going to go over all this. We're going to start this first frame out by a broad look, because I do want to show you where this is coming from, which I kind of did over the last several minutes, but I want to show you a model output. So we're going to start this off by Monday evening, tomorrow evening, the 23rd. The GFS is initializing this as 1,000 millibar low pressure, which, one could argue that's a tropical storm. So this might already be Tropical Storm Helene sometime tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised if we wake up tomorrow morning and this is Tropical Storm Helene. I wouldn't be surprised one bit. As we start to move into Tuesday morning, this is a 998 millibar low based off the GFS. All right, so it's strengthening. The more you see this number drop, the stronger the tropical system. We start to move into Wednesday morning. It drops from the 990s to the 970s as a 977 millibar low Wednesday morning, the 25th. This is a Category 2 hurricane. If you were going to try to guess the millibar to strength of the hurricane, category-wise, probably around a Category 2 hurricane. We're going to go on to switch this to just the southeast frame, and we're going to keep it at this for the rest of the run. We're showing you all the model runs, all right? So this is midday Wednesday, about 1 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, actually. All right, so we got a 971 millibar low hurricane sneaking up at the bottom of your screen. Here it comes. It's moving north. We take it all the way to Thursday morning, September the 26th. And this isn't next Thursday morning. This is this Thursday morning. It's this close to us, folks. 90 hours out. Has a 944 millibar major hurricane in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Okay, if you had to guess the category, I would say that's probably about a Category 4 hurricane, high-end Category 3. Look at all this moisture being surged north, and I'm going to show you why. I'm going to talk to you about why, kind of explain it, why this is a huge moisture surge well north of this system. Going to cause a big surge issue and a big heavy rainfall and flooding issue. Okay, 944 millibar low. We take this to Thursday, about early Thursday afternoon, 941 millibar low, coming up into the central panhandle of Florida, and then it makes landfall sometime Thursday p.m., sometime Thursday afternoon as a 940-ish millibar Category 3 or 4 hurricane. Okay, that is a bad case scenario. Okay, so this continues to move over the panhandle and obviously just wreak havoc across the state of Georgia, areas of Alabama, even South Carolina. But the core of this system in this scenario, not saying this is exactly what's going to happen, but in this particular scenario based off the GFS, this would bring big impacts all the way up to Atlanta, Georgia, and across everywhere in Georgia pretty much. Okay, it still has a 968 millibar low Thursday night and Friday morning. This is still a hurricane strength system moving right through the middle of Georgia. And then this would do, and I know we're not worried about the leaf and the fall foliage stuff because, that's the leaves getting stripped off, aren't going to negatively impact people's lives as far as physical harm or anything. But, if you're a big fall foliage fan, this would definitely have negative impacts across the foliage across the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee and things like that. But let's not talk too heavy on that. But this would bring a big shield of impacts across North Georgia, the upstate of South Carolina, the western Carolinas, and then of course it will dissipate very quickly over areas of the southeast. So that's one scenario. That's probably one of your worst case scenarios. I would say we don't really truly know what the worst case scenario is, right? The worst case scenario is obviously a Category 5 hurricane, but this is darn near close to that on the GFS. So the timeline is looking like it's going to be Thursday. It really is. Whether it's Thursday morning, Thursday night, not sure. Okay, latest Euro. If you've been tuning in for a while, you know the Euro has been consistently weaker further west than just an all-out conservative model. Okay, Wednesday evening, it still has this at about tropical storm status here in the southern Gulf of Mexico. 991 millibar low. All right, we start to move into Thursday morning. It's a 987 low in category 1 hurricane, strong tropical storm. Huge system. Huge. And that has been the common thing we're seeing on model guides, is the fact that this system looks like it's going to be quite big, which is never good. Okay, we take this into Thursday about midday, early afternoon, the 26th. It's a 986 millibar category 1 hurricane, and heading right towards the Florida coastline. And then it makes landfall as a strengthening category 1, maybe low in category 2 hurricane into kind of pretty much the same area the GFS does, except it's just about 35 to 40 millibars weaker. So, instead of a category 3 or 4 hurricane, it's just about a category 1 making landfall right into the central panhandle of Florida. And of course, it would bring a lot of impacts across Georgia. So, if you compare the Euro with the GFS, as far as landfall, where it's going to hit, I mean, they're dead on. Central panhandle, might as well just say the panhandle of Florida, right dead on here. So we continue to move forward here, brings a lot of impacts. I mean, it's almost a copy and paste as far as where it goes from the panhandle of Florida inland as the GFS. So, that's one thing I would say agreement-wise, we're starting to get a lot of agreement with where this is going to go. But of course, we can still have changes. So if you're tuning in from Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, heck, even Texas, you still got to continue to tune in. But I would say Texas, heck, maybe even Louisiana, this is starting to look better for you, I would say. Okay, worse for you folks to the east. Now, the Euro AI model, this has been a model that's done a decent job. It's kind of a new model on the block. I wouldn't call it an experimental model. It's done pretty well. But we start this off for Wednesday evening. This is a 989 strong tropical storm, low in category 1 hurricane right here in the southern Gulf of Mexico. We start to take this into Thursday morning. It's about a category 1 hurricane tucked into the eastern sections of the Gulf. Probably getting close to Cat 2 status. And then it does make landfall. It's about a Category 2 hurricane. And guys, I guess these categories based off millibars. It could be off. The millibar does not always tell you the category of the storm, but it does make landfall into the Big Bend area, a little bit further east into the Big Bend, more so the Big Bend than the panhandle of Florida, as a 978 around a Category 2 hurricane, slingshotting a ton of moisture up into the southeast, all the way up into the mid-Atlantic. And of course, this path is just a little bit further east, so it would bring more impacts across. I mean, it would bring the same impacts across Georgia, but it would bring more impacts more so into South Carolina. But it kind of ends up in the same area Friday morning as where the Euro and the GFS ends up. So that's that. Now the Icon model. I'm probably not going to use the Icon model for much longer. We're probably going to start to stick with the GFS, Euro, and just real-time observations. But the Icon model, tropical storm down here, we get into Thursday morning, has a 990 tropical storm, and then just makes landfalls around a Category 1 hurricane sometime Thursday evening, and around the same area that the Euro AI makes run. So you got the Icon, the Euro AI model a little bit further east, the GFS, Euro stronger, a tick further west, but all this makes landfall into Florida, right? So, yeah. What about the ensemble model guidance? Well, we're going to get this in motion for you. We're going to start this off for about midday. So this is the EPS. The Euro ensemble makes up 51 members. If all 51 members generates a low pressure, then all 51 L's are going to show up on your screen. So you quite literally are probably going to have 40 or 50 something members here that show up. So we're going to get this in motion midday Wednesday. We take it into Thursday morning. Okay. All these members are pretty decently strong tropical system. And then we're just going to clear the entirety of the run here. You'll notice that you got a few stragglers back here in Alabama and Mississippi. But listen, most of these are right here in this area of Florida. Okay, the panhandle of Florida, North Florida, Big Bend of Florida. And you got some members that are kind of want to dip back to the west. Some just go straight north. And you got some that kind of drift across upstate South Carolina. But listen, I mean, this is kind of coming together, right? I mean, this is starting to look like this is going to make landfall in the panhandle of Florida and bring a lot of impacts inland to Alabama, Georgia, heck, even the Carolinas, all the way up into Tennessee and Kentucky eventually. because it's not like these tropical systems just go poof and disappear as soon as they hit land. We know that. They can bring a lot of impacts inland. But we got to see if this is going to hook west based off an upper trough feature that we're going to talk heavier on here in a second, or if it's not. Okay, but man, that is a solid agreement here for the Panhandle or either the Big Bend of Florida. Okay. Now, we can only look at the GEFS ensembles from 12Z because I don't think the 06Z is complete. We'll check. Let's check real quick. I don't want to speak too soon. Let's look at the 18Z. So this will be the latest information that we have. And we're 72 hours out. So, unfortunately, yeah. So we don't have the completion of the run. But this is all the way out till Thursday evening. All the members on the GEFS ensemble, which makes up 21 members. Okay. The Euro ensemble 51, this makes up 21. I mean, this is a pretty big spread in the Gulf. Now, are all these going to continue to head, this way or this way, or is some of them going to try to go this way? You would think these are, but I wouldn't assume that. Okay, so let's actually go back and look. That stinks. We're so close to having the entirety of that run. Let's update this. Excuse me. And I can tell you already on the 18Z, there's stronger members and more cluster and just more members. So we're going to move this in time and actually just clear the entirety of the run here. And I mean, the GEFS ensemble is a little bit more of a wide spread here. I mean, you got members still, plenty of members going into Alabama, even a couple members going into Louisiana, but still the central zone is the Panhandle. And I would even add, the coastal areas of Alabama, Mobile into this. On this. So, like I said, the 18Z GEFS is running now and it stinks. We don't have it. It's tearing my nerves up, but we were so close to having it. Yeah, we just don't. Maybe I'll think to go back and look at it here at the end of the update. But anyways, if we look at the Super Ensemble, which is brought to you by Tomer Berg, a great guy that has another awesome weather site out there. This is like a multi-model ensemble that is created. It combines the European ensemble, the EPS, with the UK Met, the GEFS ensemble, and then the Canadian model. Combines them all, and it creates like kind of an area where this is most likely going to go. It combines all guidance. And listen, I mean, look, the Panhandle of Florida is definitely the area that it's liking. Right here, zigzagging through right into this area. You notice how the coloring kind of goes off to the west. There's a reason it does that. I'm going to show you here in a second. But this is a great thing to show because it combines all model guidance, you might as well say, all reliable model guidance, and it's really all zooming into the Panhandle. This is looking like a Panhandle storm. It's not an exact forecast, but I guarantee you when the National Hurricane Center issues their first cone, it's probably going to be, the center of that cone is going to be right into the Panhandle of Florida. So, portion of the video where we kind of geek out with you guys a little bit. You're going to actually see how much of a nerd Mitch is. And so here we go. First thing that's very easy to explain is sea surface temperatures. We know that warmer, moist air, warm waters of the surface of the ocean, tropical systems love it. The warmer they are, the better it is for these systems. So, I know this is in Celsius, and you're probably wondering what's 31 degrees. I mean, that's below freezing. Well, this is in Celsius. So 30, 31, 32 degrees Celsius is equivalent to the mid to upper 80s, close to 90 degrees once you get to 32, 33 in Fahrenheit. Okay, with these seas, so basically this area right here in the Gulf of Mexico, let's see if we can circle here. Let's use black. So the system is right into here, right? This system is going to basically go over rocket fuel. Okay, sea surface temperatures in this area, 30, 31 degrees Celsius, so mid to upper 80s in Fahrenheit. So check that off the box as an ingredient that supports the strengthening and maintaining of a tropical cyclone. It's going to have just rocket fuel. Okay, the Gulf of Mexico is a bathtub right now. If you dip your toes in the Gulf of Mexico right now, you're not really going to get much relief. And trust me, I have before. One time when I chased a tropical system in the Gulf of Mexico in mid-August, and I stuck my foot into the waters of the Gulf of Mexico, I was shocked at how warm it was. It was just unbelievable. I've never felt ocean water so warm, but I'm sure locals down there are certainly used to it. So waters are plenty warm enough for a tropical system, and a tropical system that could rapidly intensify. In fact, there's this little kind of almost yeti of water right in here that's even hot, and that might be over 90 degrees. Some of these buoys out here might be registering like sea surface temperatures above 90 degrees. I'm not sure, but this system might go right over that little, area that's warmer than the surrounding area. So pretty wild stuff. So this portion of the video is where we talk about the upper wind pattern. So winds 35, 40,000 feet up in the air. So you'll see these kind of slashes right here of blue right here and here, even the, yellowish green up here. These are winds at about 35, 40,000 feet up in the air. And in the area, you see the blue and the green. This is where winds are going at about anywhere from 20 to as much as 30, 40, 50, 60 knots. Okay, we're not going to focus too much on the wind speed, just more so the direction that it's going in the upper levels of the atmosphere. So we're going to initialize, this is the GFS, we're going to initialize this for Tuesday morning. All right, GFS has a 998 millibar low tropical storm in the Western Caribbean. Okay, in the northern hemisphere, low pressure spins cyclonically, so just like this. Okay, so in the low to mid levels of the atmosphere, that's how this tropical cyclone will be spinning. In the upper levels of the atmosphere, the GFS is saying we're going to have this very supportive outflow aloft for a strengthening tropical system. So if you look, you see these lines right here with the arrows embedded into them. These lines are going out like this, and the arrows are pointing this way. Then the arrows come out and point this way. Same thing right here. Lines come out with arrows that point that way. Dips down here. Gets a little weird right here where it kind of goes like that, but then it slingshots like this. And then, the arrows down here are just kind of squiggling all over the place, and they're kind of loop-de-loops and stuff like that. But the thing that I will mention about wind speed, there's lack of it, kind of on the southern to southwest flank of this system. So you don't really have any air movement. Well, you do got air movement. The air is moving, but it's lack of. So even if the air was moving straight against the bottom edge of this tropical system, I don't think it would be bothering it much, because it's not like we're having 20 to 30 knots of southwesterly shear hitting this system. It's very stagnant flow, lack of hardly any flow there. So really what you focus on here is all the air being dispersed out away from the system of these arrows I drew here. So, air is rising, okay, through this system, and then air is being dispersed outward, and that's exactly what's happened here. So air is rising right through here, and then it's getting pushed outward. Whether it's getting just dispersed directly away from the storm or literally anticyclonically around the storm, regardless, the environment and like 80-85% of the area around this storm supports rising air. And it's just basically what I'm trying to say is you have an environment in the upper levels of the atmosphere that supports I wouldn't say a rapidly, I mean it could, but at least a system that could moderately to maybe even rapidly intensify. The upper wind pattern supports it. Okay, so air is being dispersed away from the storm, allowing for more air to rise. So it's just a continuous ventilation cycle. Okay, so now that we explained that, we'll move this in time. So Tuesday morning, that will be in place. Disbursement of air above this storm, allowing for more air to rise. Rising air allows for the sustaining and the firing of convection. Check out when it gets right into this area. Okay, this is Wednesday midday. Big jet streak diving down because we have this upper trough diving here. We're going to talk more on this. So a lot of flow jetting across this area. This is going to get a jet boost because this jet screeching across the southeast. So this is going to rapidly push air away from the storm right here, right into here. I mean, look how it just dives down. Look at this incredible outflow being jetted way away from the storm, hundreds of miles. Now, right now, down here, you're getting air moving in this way, but it jets across this way. And then down here, air is just kind of going like this. But the real thing to focus on here is this area up here. Air is being just dispersed outward at such a rapid pace. This is just allowing for constant ventilation of the system, constant air to just rise through the middle levels and just the middle section of this tropical system. So this thing is just living and breathing its best life, quite literally breathing its best life in the Gulf of Mexico as it sits over sea surface temperatures in the upper 80s. So what does that mean? Well, that could mean that we could have a rapid RI, which stands for rapid intensification situation in the eastern Gulf of Mexico with this system. A lot of people are throwing out Wilma, Michael. Listen, I wouldn't rule out any scenario like this. This thing kind of worries me because it has similarities to Michael, and we know what Michael did to the panhandle of Florida. So, yeah. upper wind pattern supports rapid intensification. I'm not even going to lie. In the Gulf of Mexico, a lot of air being dispersed outward. And one thing that all this air is going to do here, and I'll mention this as we get a little bit closer to the southeast, is here comes our tropical system. Here it is, just rapidly intensifying here in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Is see how you see these lines right here with the arrows embedded into them? You see how you're just going like this, like that, like this. This is throwing a ton of moisture even well north of the system across Florida and the southeast, most likely. Maybe not extending all the way to North Carolina where I drew the line, but there is so much air being dispersed outward from the system. This is going to just allow for a huge environment in this area for a lot of moisture to just kind of sustain itself and just be there. So a huge moist field well ahead, well north and northeast and east of this system will likely get dispersed north of the system into these areas of Alabama, Georgia, and Florida especially. Okay, so widespread impacts. This system will be so wide because of that upper wind pattern in place. Now, what about dry air? There's been some chatter about that. I would say we're trending away from any dry air affecting this storm. And here's another great example of that air being dispersed away from the system. Here comes the GFS. This is Thursday morning, major hurricane in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. And here's a great example of that. Remember I was showing you about all the air being dispersed out here just a second ago? Well, it's a great example of it. You know, see this huge moist field right here in this area? Really on the northern, northeast, and eastern side of the system? That's because the entire atmosphere in this area is just ridiculously favorable for moisture. So there's just going to be a huge slingshot of that getting thrown into the southeast even before the worst of the system moves in, which is the actual heart of the hurricane. Okay, there is some dry air trying to flirt with this system as it tries to, some westerly flow tries to hit the western side of the system that will try to eat up some convection on the western side of the system and actually allow for some dry air to get wrapped into it. And that still could happen, but I just don't think it's going to happen fast enough. In fact, it does not. You see how the dry air tries to get in right at the last second here? It tries to wrap into the system, but this thing is so cocooned in such a moist environment at this point that, I mean, it's going to take, you know, a Thor-size sledgehammer to really break down the convective walls of the southern side of this system. I mean, so unfortunately, this system, it just isn't bothered enough by the dry air quick enough. It doesn't get into the cyclonic flow of the system fast enough to weaken it upon landfall. And unfortunately, in this case, you have a strengthening hurricane as it makes landfall into the panhandle of Florida. Look at this huge moist field well north of the system. Okay, I really think we're going to have a huge slingshot of moisture. I know I keep mentioning the word slingshot, but I mean, it's a great way to explain it, but I really think we're just going to have a huge funneling of moisture right into the southeast with this, and a lot of moisture into this area up here. So yeah, hopefully I explained that correctly. I feel like I didn't do quite as good as a job at that time than I have in the last few videos, but hopefully it made sense to the new viewers. But the reason, and we're going to kind of move forward here in time with the steering currents, because I think as we move over the next few videos, we're going to kind of stop talking about this as much because I do think the path of this is starting to really narrow down. But the reason this is pulling north, three reasons. One, okay, here's our system down here. Okay, this is our tropical system down here. Likely going to be a hurricane at this point as we're getting the Wednesday night into Thursday morning. So I know it's way down here at the bottom of your screen. You see this feature right here? This is like an upper trough and upper low. Flow around this is going just like that. Okay, see this ridge? The ridge is indicated in the orange salmon colors, a trough of low pressure. This is a ridge of high pressure. This is a trough of low pressure. Low pressure, high pressure, low pressure, which is actually our tropical system. Flow around both of these features is different, right? So the flow around this ridge is going just like that. Okay? Mixed with the fact that a stronger system likes to gain latitude. Stronger it gets, the more it's going to want to jet northward. So obviously, even as this system has weak flow really pulling it one way or the other, it's still heading north. So this system's already heading north. And then you've got the pulling of this ridge right into here. Flow's coming in like this. Flow's going around this upper trough, upper low, whatever you want to call it, area of low pressure like that. So this is basically like two gearing mechanisms working perfectly together to just bring this straight north. Okay, right into the panhandle. Now the big question is, we'll get this back off your screen. The big question here is, as we move this in time, watch how this low, I'm going to get this in motion real quick and then I'll draw on it again. Watch how this low pulls on this low. So it pulls on it and actually yanks it a little bit west here. Just a little nudge west. And then it gets kind of trapped around this huge ridge over Canada and North America, and then it just eventually dissipates. So, a lot of people, I mentioned it a couple days ago, the potential for a big-time cold front to push this. This is not the case. Yes, this upper trough will have a cold front, or upper low will have a cold front associated with it, but not one of those full country clearing cold fronts. We haven't had that in a while in the eastern U.S. So, at this point, okay, you got two things going on here. As this is about to make landfall into the Florida Panhandle. All right, we got the flow going like this. Okay, and then we got the flow still yanking on this system like this. So is this system going to kind of move inland and kind of do like that? Or is it going to kind of go more so like this and then just kind of dissipate right into here? Okay, I know we need to focus a lot on where this is going to make actual landfall. That's more important. But, there's a potential that this could dive down faster, right? This upper trough. And then kind of yank this system, if it's down here, yank it a little bit more this way, okay, into maybe Alabama and Mississippi. There's still the potential for that. So, but we're running out of time for any massive changes in the upper steering current pattern, okay? So that's what's steering it. Hope that makes sense. Rainfall totals, guys, listen, this is between now and next Saturday evening. Widespread rain is expected. We could just get several inches of rain. Some areas, well inland Georgia, Carolinas, Tennessee, Alabama could get a lot of rain. I'm really, particularly concerned, I would say about like this area right into here. Okay, I don't know, just something about the entire state of Georgia, and also the mountains of North Carolina, as we'll have a lot of flow right up against the mountain range. And we'll have some enhancement from some upslope flow and things like that. So that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. We'll continue to keep you updated. And this is definitely a concerning situation. Let's see if we have another update from the National Hurricane Center. We do not. So definitely a concerning situation, guys. Not even going to lie. This just seems like one of those classic major hurricanes that we get once a hurricane season, it seems like. So we'll continue to pump out the updates. Stay tuned. We'll have another update in the morning. We could have some significant changes overnight. God bless y'all and have a great night.